Google, if you're watching this, come after me. Clicks, 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 and it goes up. So that click, 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 click is just,
and there's just
not
one more
how
thing.
the system works. Do it. And if it doesn't work out, things...
All right, here we are.
All right. So today we're going to debate about AI versus Google search. So
Yes.
Tell me about your point of view on how the search will evolve over the next years or so.
Yeah, thank you, Erfan. So I do think that behaviors are slowly changing, and I do think people will also evolve into searching differently in the way that they will interact with brands and the way they search in different ways than they do today. Meaning we will start seeing really more long, complex queries, but not the long tail we have today. Something much more complex and experience-based. For example, I live in X. I'm looking for this experience. I have a budget of X. I want to go this date, give me some recommendations. So a really big experience-based queries. I think that's where we're going. Are we there yet? Not yet. But I do think companies should be at least aware of the possibilities of this. And I think the big question is how much percentage this will shift from traditional search engines. So this is where I think the change is happening. And will it be abrupt or not? That I cannot tell just yet.
So I do have a complete opposite perspective about this. You've probably been around enough in the SEO world. You probably heard about the voice search buzz in the SEO back in 2016 and 2020. People were claiming the voice search is actually the future of search. It never happened.
Yeah,
it just people from the agency aspect were trying to sell packages with regards to some sort of optimization for voice search.
Yeah.
And they afterwards it turned out to be something made up by SEOs. The truth be told, I do believe ChatGPT or AI has its own use cases that can make our lives easier. But so far, to be clear and to be honest, the amount of, I've looked into the Google Trends data, the amount of searches for Search GPT is essentially 1% of Bing. Allow me to correct myself because I probably messed it up. So allow me to share my screen here. So this is actually Gemini. The second one is essentially Bing, which is this one is actually Google, the one which is the biggest, Bing being 1%, Gemini being 1%, and Google being essentially having 50% of the searches essentially being done about Google. Although this is not a good analysis for Google.
But this is just a search term you're looking at here.
We are talking about people's interest.
The brand name here you're looking at.
Exactly, brand name. And if I actually show you the amount of Search GPT related searches, it's even less than Bing. It's even less than Bing. And if you actually scroll down and try to look at the data, let's do it for Gemini, then we'll take a look at ChatGPT as well, and as well as Search GPT and also Bing. And a lot of the queries that are essentially navigational queries, related queries that in the same browsing, these users are doing the same searches. So let's say they search for Gemini, then they change the query to something else. And that's why these queries do show up here.
Yeah.
What we can see.
It's an opportunity in my book, this one. It's not like, I mean, people are saying, hey, no, this is not happening. And when I see when I post stuff, there are a number of SEOs that are actually, as you somehow saying that, hey, no, it's the trends are not there, the volumes are not there, therefore we should not be doing it. But I like to think instead this is an opportunity, and to at least give the possibility to think for brands and companies that, hey, Do you want to do something? Do you want to explore? Are your users engaging with your brand differently that we should do something about it? And then you decide. This is also something I think important.
That I would agree with. But here's the thing to consider. So far, it's been 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT and months since the launch of SearchGPT. We are not seeing a change in the user behavior when it comes to organic search so far.
Mm.
And if you actually take a look at Bing, obviously there's some AI related searches related to Bing as well, which is interesting. People are now connecting Bing to being a sort of AI because the autopilot that they have. Bing image creator, most likely, I don't know what it is, most likely some sort of AI tool. I need to dig into it more. Then we actually go deep into it. Let's actually take a look at SearchGPT. SearchGPT, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and not really any like searches that confirms this is actually being done at SearchGPT or ChatGPT is being done as a search engine. Although I believe it is a useful, we do use AI all the time. We do use SearchGPT and ChatGPT all the time, but not for the purpose of finding something, to be honest with you. And then if you actually take a look at data with regards to Google, obviously Google has many, many products, like Google Translate pops up, Google Maps pops up. So we cannot really tell like which products from Google search are being used, but we don't see Gemini here. And that's okay. And then let's take a look
at Erfan, knowing what we know, okay, the percentages are not so huge right now, but knowing what we know, that Google hides stuff for us, because we know what they've been doing in the past, with also what you discovered a number of months ago. Don't you think it will be against their interest to show instead that they are losing market share? So what I'm trying to say is, what if this data wasn't as accurate as it appears?
That's the importance of looking at multiple data sources. So we actually analyze the data, US ClickStream users. We get our data, we essentially pay for it from the company, provider company. We cannot name the company based on the contract that we have with them. We really didn't see that much craziness when it comes to search queries related to ChatGPT and OpenAI. And this third thing that we need to look at is referral traffic coming from SearchGPT or ChatGPT, which is, we've heard the news now that there is an attribute being added to the link, so it makes tracking easier. But working with my clients and the companies that I personally work with, we haven't seen that shift yet. And it comes to the fact AI has its own use cases, but the future of ChatGPT and OpenAI is essentially going to be something like internet in 80s. It's still not developed. The other associated technologies are still being worked on. And even the power of being able to electricity and powering up like servers is very costly. And the company OpenAI is currently not profitable. So the thing is, you may actually cannot predict the future. It can be in a way that, all of a sudden people will stop using Google search, which I don't agree with, because the searcher behavior has essentially will be here for many, many, many years to come, 15 years or 20 years. And something interesting I do want to show you though, in ChatGPT, if you look at related queries, it's like nothing crazy that we can actually spot that there is some sort of, let's say it's being used for image search or ChatGPT search or ChatGPT, similar to Google search. Although with Google search, having there in our data is not a good way to measure relevancy of SearchGPT or ChatGPT as essentially in this data source. Because we're not comparing apples to apples, you're comparing apples to oranges. But my thought is you should anyone who's actually business owner, CMO, marketing manager, you should absolutely try to optimize for everything, not just organic SEO, not just Google. Try to optimize for Bing as well. Because if you try to optimize for Bing, then ChatGPT is essentially connected to the
Yeah.
ChatGPT and ChatGPT, and they're very, very well connected. So ensuring that we do have good average ranking across all platforms, even TikTok, even Instagram, why not? You do want to build your audience in multiple channels, not just one. Although right now, Google search is dominating. They have so much power over any other search engines that I often have these clients with like 50,000 daily visits. And we look at their Bing Webmaster tools, and they're getting like 80 clicks a day from Bing, and with thousands of pages, by the way. But the truth be told, we don't know for sure, but it's actually, I would recommend folks to be on a standby mode, but we're not seeing a shift, and it's been years. And the future of AI is questionable and unpredictable.
Wait,
That's
wait,
my
wait, wait a
opinion.
second. Wait a
Please
second.
proceed now.
Wait a second. So, first of all, we have to remember that the search functionality of ChatGPT was only enabled a number of months ago. And yeah, maybe 5 or 6 months ago to premium users. So the user base was relatively tiny. Just recently, they have launched the search functionality to, if I'm not wrong, 100 million users potentially, which are their non-paying users or not logged in. This I'm not entirely sure, but they release the functionality to a broader user base. So people have this functionality added just recently. And until then, that meant that the cutoff of the information you could retrieve from ChatGPT was up to a certain date. So there's, I think, also some people that used it and they didn't get as many relevant information. So in a way they went, wow, this is not so good because the information at that time wasn't as good because it was old or not up to date. But now the functionality is better. And especially if you have a complex query, you can enable the search functionality, ask him to browse online, search this particular thing. Then what I like doing is a bit of a hack. You switch it off and then you ask him again to refine the result or give you something else. And then it's extremely good. Don't keep the search on all the time. Just do it when you need to. And especially for informational queries, I think that the results are actually far superior when you're looking for something complex and difficult. Even my wife recently, she switched from traditional search to ChatGPT, I have to be honest, and she told me she's using it for like 80-90% of the time because she can get better results faster rather than keep on scrolling through pages, going through results, which are now cluttered in the search in Google with images, carousels, position zero results, and is extremely cluttered. So this really makes me think of a sort of a similar, let's say, 0-day event from when we went sort of from the Yahoo days to the Google days, where Google at the time was much better, faster, gave you all the information you needed compared to the other search engines, Yahoo, AltaVista, etc., which was very clunky and crappy. So I'm not saying it will be again the type of shift, but what I know is that at the same time, people just want the best results possible. They don't care what platform they use. So while I agree what you mentioned earlier that one should optimize for all platforms together, I also think that when users find something that works better, they will jump ship. And it's not that they will be melancholic, oh, we love Google, no, we're not changing. Now, users will not care if they find better results. The problem is that now websites are not optimized in the optimal way for bringing up those results. So this is what I've tried also to do. I have a strategy called the Rocky 4, which essentially informs brands on, do you want to appear for this new type of searches? Then we need to do a new content strategy. You cannot have a Google content strategy and appear on ChatGPT search results because the type of searches are completely different. And I think also this is where the opportunity is happening. And the numbers are still small, but the potential is great. And This also may be a little tip, side tip for SEOs, where if you're stuck, they ask you what is coming for 2025. Sprinkle in some conversational strategy, at least throw it in there. And lastly, the voice search, I agree 100%. SEOs have been talking about this 2016, I remember, just touting it as, hey, next year will be voice search, or next year will be voice search, probably because they had no clue what next year will be coming, right? So that was an easy win. But at the same time, now with a if you try a voice search with an experienced type of query in ChatGPT, you can really get the best out of it. So I think this is sort of a concurrent evolution into the voice searches. So this can really pick up pace, because if people understand they can ask conversational queries through these other platforms and the results are better, I think the usage maybe that will start going up. The problem is the average user, the Joe in the street or the grandma, does not know these things, right? So education, education, education.
Let's get into the technical aspect of it. You mentioned users are searching using more long form
They
queries.
can. I'm not saying they are right now. They can. They could. Yes.
Yeah, but getting to the modern search engine optimization or information retrieval, we can clearly see they've actually convert a particular long query into entities and topics. So essentially, let's say, what's the height of Justin Bieber in 2025?
You mean
It
they
doesn't
shrink
matter.
into the small? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Exactly. They'll try to pick up, Justin Bieber's height,
Height.
not
Yep.
anything else.
Yep.
And that means is like if you are relevant for certain queries in Bing, that's like a crazy strategy to try to optimize for what's the Justin Bieber's height in 2025 or 2024, whatever. It doesn't make sense. Another thing which I'd like to show you here, which may actually convince you though, that this is actually the, again, trends data. Me being a Google skeptic that I am, but I give them credit, and sometimes the benefit of doubt that maybe they have some good products too. So let's actually compare Search GPT versus Bing. It's crazy. Like Bing still has the majority of the market share compared to Search GPT. Another thing which I'd like to show it to you, the usage and the searches related to Search GPT. So there was this spike, which I believe was the launch of Search GPT. Then it came down, probably news happening. You're not seeing any crazy shift. And which I read another article, another famous article, which actually got into it. OpenAI model has been plateaued. It has plateaued for many months. And as you probably imagine, things happening that for initially with the issues that they're currently facing, at some hours, ChatGPT or SearchGPT doesn't work. And also considering the amount of money they have raised, they need to be a profitable company. We don't want to see a situation like this when essentially hype for a stock market happens and the company is not profitable, at the same time come to a conclusion that OpenAI or ChatGPT is going to change everything, which I believe it's possible. But with the right business model and with the right, essentially, strategy, how they're going to be profitable in the next 10 years or so. Another thing to keep in mind, that my views currently that I'm sharing here are based on what we have seen so far. So let's say Google, as we probably imagine, as we probably have seen, they're convicted monopoly. Let's say, Google gets broken up from other services. That can definitely have a huge influence, for sure.
Yeah, there's so much happening there on the Google side.
That my only recommendation is right now, let's say you do have a marketing budget, 10K a month. Put some budget towards optimization for AI, but don't assume like 100% it's going to change. you want to invest a little bit so you're safe, you're optimized for the future. But at the same time, Google search is the dominator of search traffic when it comes to organic search.
Hmm.
And that's the truth that we need to face. Although optimizing early into Search GPT and Chat GPT optimization is a smarter strategy, but is it like the 100% secret sauce of the future being like to be bulletproof? I don't think so, but I would recommend like most CMOs to do some stuff with regards to optimization, but not overdo it, essentially.
That's I would say a very balanced approach. I'm a bit again more on the other type of thinking, but I totally agree that don't see the shift yet. The opportunity is still there. But one thing on your query earlier, the Bieber one, the height. That one I don't think is the most relevant example because effectively the query boils down to Justin Bieber's height, that one, right? But then, therefore, it will be very small, the question for whichever system you use. But instead, when you interact with the engine in a way that you have an experience or sort of something more deep there, so essentially try to plan a trip. Try to ask Google that you are planning a trip with your friends. I want to spend 500 euro, stay 4 days, go in Spain and see this type of sites, and I'm carrying a dog with me. And can you recommend the best airline and the best Airbnb? If you try,
That's a great example. That's
yeah,
actually a great example. But will it take over from, let's say, the profitability of SEO? Like, not really.
but that search, if you try that to find out a travel plan for you and your friends in Google, will take you 1 hour to do it properly. If you
It
try,
can even take me like five
or
hours.
maybe
That's
longer,
true.
depends how
Maybe
detailed you
longer,
want to be.
depends. But something I want to ask you though, um, let's say like for some reason, like human and AI, like this is also another theory, which I don't know if it will
Mm.
happen at some point, but people are thinking about AI and human intelligence connecting with each other.
That's the Elon Musk stuff, which I don't
Yeah,
agree
the
with,
Elon Musk
which I
stuff,
don't like
Neuralink
at all.
stuff.
Yeah.
I like everything. That's the thing is, we don't know like how things will be in the next 20
How
years.
far things will go, let's say. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. There's always a possibility you can think about one topic and you get the answer immediately. But you're not there yet.
Mm.
We're not there yet. And from what we can tell, um, in fact, the zero-click searches and the FAQs and ads are taking more traffic from organic search channel than any other thing in the planet. In fact, Google receives more search queries than ever compared to, let's say, to 2016, because more people are get connected. Everyone essentially has a smartphone. And the most TVs nowadays, they have a browser
Mm.
functionality that could be used. But again, for majority of the queries that are transactional in format or branded in format, I don't think it's going to happen to be the case that it will affect the revenue. But at the same time, being bulletproof for AI overviews, meaning having some amount of budgets that can be spent every single month towards like just staying on the safer side in case things that transition in a dramatic, crazy way, some global event happens, something happens, Google search, like protests happen and the aliens attack the earth. In that particular situation, then it's actually, I would rather people to follow a multidisciplinary approach when it comes to organic SEO than to putting all their eggs into one bucket, which can be a dangerous thing.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, what again, back to the experience query. That also I can share a little tip there. What you just mentioned, FAQs, hugely important now, because that's one of the the pillars for appearing in conversational search. So how you're gonna optimize your FAQs, and it's not just about put a bunch of questions, just stick them there on your site. Now you need to think again, if you want to leverage that side, and what type of queries your visitors, your users will ask. So then there is an opportunity actually to amplify in both channels, because Google is still relevant for FAQs, but equally FAQs are hugely important for the conversational stuff in Search GPT. So this is one of the things we do optimize for my strategy as well. So if a brand comes to us, that will be also part of the recommendations. Of course, if it's applicable to the business. I'm not saying to everybody, do FAQs, blanket approach, everybody doing FAQs. But if they're relevant, and your Search Console data is always a gold mine for understanding what people are asking, what FAQs you should be doing, and you can expand on those and make them conversational. You can always think, hey, this one, you got that question, can you expand it a bit more, and then put it on the FAQ. This will then help your site become more relevant for those type of queries. For example, if you have people traveling and you're a travel brand, this one is easy, let's say, but that's the most obvious example. So what type of things people will ask from an experience perspective, wanting to go to place X while interacting with your brand. So it becomes quite complex, and you need to understand also your user journey, the intent of the user, what you think the intent will be. So I think this opens also creativity things, new creative ways of thinking, which is what I particularly like doing as well. And it's a bit of a new conversation where you might have your content team, which is stuck in the rut. They are out of ideas. So I think this is also can be exciting again after all the upsetness we have sometimes in the SEO industry. Google updates frustrating each other in general, which are always a mess, whether we want to agree or not. So I think this is also can be also fun again, because SEO used to be more fun, I think, than what is right now. At least for what concerns me. And I mean, although again, I'm big on this, one challenge, what Erfan was mentioning is, the internal situation of OpenAI, true. It consumes a lot of electricity, also true. And also, if you consider the distribution of the resources of Google is much more spread around. They have data centers everywhere, right? So it's very difficult Google going down. That one I totally agree. Can go down, happen I think, but very rarely. And the chat went down a number of times. Although people then go immediately to LinkedIn and shout, oh, it's down, you see, it's not good. That I think is a bit cheap to do, right? Because, of course, the resources are so insane there. It's a bit easy to just, it's like shooting the ambulance, like we say here in Italy. It's so easy. But it is effectively something. So if that one goes down, will you be relying only on it? So having eggs and spread around, is a smart strategy indeed. But for me, it's more the fun stuff as well, and how can we be creative again. So there's so much happening in the space. So I think there can be also space for everybody. And lastly, with all the shifts we've seen this year, many people lost jobs this year, and they always claim, oh, it's because of AI took all the jobs, which is partly true. But at the same time, if we are creative with the solutions, we can then create resources faster, because the solution to create tools are faster, if that makes sense. So what I mean is that the execution is faster, but the creative aspect is still down to us. So whether we will be connected to the mainframe or not, hopefully we will be still having the thinking element. And case in point, although I'm in favor of this new type of AI type of thing, I'm not in favor personally on integrating us with a microchip in general. So
Why not? It's fun. We will
I'm
be
not for
automatic.
because that goes down to removing the human aspect. We become less human, and then you lose your soul personally. So
Even what's actually useful is remember the Google glasses
yeah,
that they used to be around.
what happened
Something
to that?
that you could wear it and you could have some earphones inside your ears and you could talk to ChatGPT. Okay, tell me, what is this painting? What
Yeah,
does it
true.
do?
Yeah, what
That's
happened to those Google glasses, by the way? They're no more.
they went bankrupt. They
Disaster. Yeah,
like,
but no,
but
it's
it
it's
was
true.
the idea behind it. Here's the thing: right now, like multiple things at the same time are the chain of events will essentially
It's so
cause.
fast. It's very fast. It's too fast as well.
Exactly. Like imagine like the chain of events, if they're not together, a big revolution in terms of technology doesn't happen. Let's say you have the internet technology without having the computer technology. It doesn't work. It's similar to the AI situation that we do have natural language models which are very, very useful, and they have their applications for programming, for coding, for data science, for even essentially like asking to write a creative song for a singer that in like in a language that doesn't exist, like the most like mind-blowing things that information retrieval type of search engines cannot do. But these specific uses are for essential professionals. The reason is why everyone is panicking, because everyone in the marketing world, SEO world, is using search GPT or chat GPT to some extent. But the average human is really not bothering finding, let's say, restaurant on search GPT
Yet. Yet.
yet. But we haven't seen the evidence that the company is actually growing. We haven't seen the evidence, as you've probably seen in the trends data. But still, we need to be open-minded to the idea. Let's say we do have, let's say, some budget. Let's put 10% of budget towards search GPT and AI optimization, 10% towards TikTok, 10% towards Facebook, and 10% towards Instagram, and the rest either being, what works for your business, either organic SEO, or if your business model is in a way that, podcasting or attending event is how you can grow your business. Like, do what's necessary. So do everything. But the idea of that Google search will die in 5 years from now, and we all will be connected to an AI, and people will stop immediately using search GPT. I do not think, personally speaking, my own view on it is I don't think if that's a likely scenario, although in life everything is possible, and we should be open-minded and we should be ready for changes.
Yeah, definitely. One more thing to add also is that with this new type of strategy, you can also integrate what we call a co-pilot or other type of AI assistant solution. And I have here some stats. For example, in 2024, 72% of organizations worldwide have integrated AI into at least one business function. This was interesting. And 65% of organizations regularly use generative AI, reflecting a rapid transition. So there are some trends which are big, and the interactions with co-pilots, when they are programmed with the information of the company, using their own data and the way you want a company to interact with the user, that really engages more with your user. And one of my clients now, we create a co-pilot which helps reducing the drop of points through an inquiry process, where my client does not have the capacity to be having a customer person online all the time. So this is, we're just launching this, but because they have a high ticket offering prices in landscaping services, and we want to find out more about this users dropping. So what I did in partnership with my business partner, Cien Solon, we create a co-pilot, which essentially helps users understand more about their challenges there on if they don't have enough budget, what they can do. And we're hoping to get this information for the users that are interacting, and then refining the content strategy. So it becomes sort of a feedback loop, because we can access this data anonymized, obviously, and we can get the data from the questions, and then with the questions we can refine the content strategy, do new FAQs and all of that. This is very powerful. So I'm not talking about just a random chatbot that answers, but this is something really customized. And there's been a lot of talk here, how long it takes to train a model, how they will respond. So this is also quite interesting. So you can create more interactions, engage more with your users, and people seem to like chatbots in general when they are relevant. If they don't start answering things off a tangent, of course, which can happen. They ask you completely, I reply completely crap, basically. So, but I think this goes also hand in hand with this new type of strategies where we can think a bit bigger. There is another one, very interesting, from a company called Prezi, from down under, from Australia, and they create a sort of a interactive chatbot for e-com clients. I have it on my site, so you can have a specific assistant that goes on your fashion clients. Think ASOS, TK Maxx, those big retailers, that you can essentially browse an e-com site from the chatbot. And soon it will also be able to conduct transactions straight from the chatbot. So one might think, do we still need the website if the chatbot will be so good? And you can literally ask, hey, I need a dress from a party for my friend's birthday, and it needs to cost from this to this. What do you recommend? So it takes your user, remains on the page, and then it guides you through the checkout process. So this is something again a bit still is not completely new, but there's a new solutions which are happening. So the space is really accelerating quick. So we'll see. This is one of the other exciting things. So, but then again, a balanced approach. I also agree with that in general. So we disagree, but also we agree here.
The balanced approach, balance is the principle of life, essentially. Like, the thing is, like, right now, majority of the SEOs I talk to, I ask them, like, I look at the data for sure, but also ask for people's opinions and feedback as well. I ask them, are you worried about Search GPT taking over? They often say, yeah, they're pretty much all concerned. But they ask, did it happen yet? They said no.
Yeah,
That's the
true.
thing
But
that we're seeing.
true, and at the same time challenging because I do think at the same time, but I think this is something we agree and disagree at the same time that having a Google only content strategy is at risk right now. You should, in
It's
fact,
a bad idea.
yeah,
It's a bad idea. Yeah, if someone only focuses on Google, in some cases though, for some business models, relying on Google search only is the optimal idea. Always in the organic issue
it depends,
strategy.
right? Always.
Exactly. Let's say you do have essentially set up some ratios, how much percentages and how much budget, how much work you're contributing to each channel. Right now, SEO, organic SEO, Google search is a dominator, meaning like we do more, do essentially do more for Google search than we do for Bing.
Hmm.
If the ratio to happen to change at some point, then we will essentially adjust it and optimize for being related factors. And the same goes with TikTok, Instagram, because a lot of Gen Zs, a lot of young people do use TikTok as a
Mm.
search engine.
Yeah.
But not everyone. But whenever like something pops up in their TikTok account, they'll do a search about it on TikTok. There are even some engagement manipulation services, not the public ones, by the way, you search for by TikTok
Mm.
likes or
Mm.
followers. And those ones actually can create some amount of engagement and rank you higher. But essentially, again, not probably doesn't comply with the policies of TikTok. The thing is, optimizing for all channels is the right thing to do, but organic search, particularly SF, Google search, then Bing, right now, in my opinion, they'll deserve the most amount of budget compared to Search GPT
And
at this
also,
moment.
also, Erfan, we can also agree that on this one, I think that it depends also by the scope of the company, right? Because if you have a sizable enough company with a substantial budget, so we can say, for example, 10K a month, something, let's say decent, not huge, not small, then you can definitely play easier to, I mean, it's easier to spread around different things. But for smaller businesses, that can be challenging. So what I will challenge small businesses to do is that have a think about the way the customers engage with your brand. Do you want to explore the conversational stuff? Then you can go a bit heavier there. But then equally, if you think the conversational is not going to be as strong, probably also stay what you're doing now, because that might be counterproductive. So on the one hand, I'm happy to consult for this new strategy I'm doing, but at the same time, with budgets being so small, it's going to be difficult. So what we provide is strategic guidance for this new type of service where I help businesses to essentially carry on the work internally. So we provide them a strategy, consulting for conversational type of thing, and then the brand will have to sort of start going on with the bicycle by themselves, because this, in my opinion, is the best use also for our resources, where they can essentially create a new strategy and then execute themselves if they can, with their internal resources. So this can be also challenging, where you have to spread around so many channels, but with small budgets or man hours available, you cannot do it. And here we're not talking about, hey, write a bunch of content on ChatGPT. Absolutely not. I'm against this in principle. I think the way people have used so far ChatGPT for content has been really wrong. And that's also why we had so much crappy content online. So I think it will also come down to trimming down content again on websites, pruning stuff, and essentially making things more relevant again. This comes in trends, right? Sometimes. So there's a new thing, people exploit it, it ranks for a while, then you go back and then you have to fix it. And that's what they pay us for most of the time. So I think this also goes down to creating more cleaner websites as well, again, and then effectively using it for optimizations in between, but not for doing the bulk of the work, because that's what happened quite a lot. And that's why we had also the updates and removing spam and stuff. So, for example, on my site, what I've done optimization on my own for the conversational, and just recently I've seen a huge spike in traffic, and I can see more queries there, and especially what I did optimize for FAQs and a number of things. So I've seen quite a nice boost there. We will see if it is sustained or not, but just during the holidays, my traffic actually improved on my site, which is relatively small. Consultants, we don't get millions of users, but it was somewhat interesting to see. And
But again, are the traffic coming from Search GPT or Google search? That's the question.
it's an interesting one, because for now is Google traffic actually, but then it has an impact from the way I've optimized for conversational queries for my Search GPT strategy. So that shows to me that there's something happening there.
Yeah, there is definitely something happening. What I can tell you, people, especially inexperienced CMOs or people that they can pronounce the word SEO, but they don't know much about it. They think ranking for one particular query is a smart idea. That's really not the case. People search for queries in different ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think one benefit of essentially humanizing the search queries via the entities and also being very specific in the context you're providing is the benefit you will essentially rank for long tail variations, long tail clicks, long tail queries without not needing to have a lot of essentially link-based signals and click-based signals. So that's an opportunity that can be leveraged. In fact, majority of the search traffic that companies do get doesn't really come from one query. If you actually cluster the pages and you try to see all the queries that are associated with one page, there are hundreds of queries.
Yes.
There are 200, 300 queries. I think that's one benefit of, for example, the strategy that you're proposing, that you will be able to rank for long tail variations and a lot of queries at the same time without the need to, worry about the competition being so rough. That's the thing that CMOs do miss, just because of the it used to be the case though back in the day before the entity stuff and the natural language processing stuff was integrated into Google search. You really needed to have one keyword and for one page, and you needed to actually optimize that particular keyword with essentially associated with one query only.
Yeah. And then
But
more
nowadays,
pages, more just limited amount of keywords for limited amount of pages, right?
exactly. But that's not how things are working nowadays.
Yep. That's
One page could rank for 200 similar queries at the same time. Well, how can you rank then? It's really not putting the keywords more often will actually help you, but being semantically relevant and also page being and the quality aspect, and also having some amount of authorities, subject matter authority, which comes back to links, is what can actually boost the page in rankings. But being semantically correct, meaning trying to avoid keyword stuffing, but instead using descriptive words that can describe your solution and the problem in machine readable format, is,
Yeah,
I
that's
believe, to be the right strategy.
Yeah, that's true. That's also connect to schema stuff. So schema is also hugely important for this new strategy we're proposing. It's also one part of that. And case in point, for writing schema markup stuff, please do use ChatGPT. Check it. This is my advice and recommendation. But it's pretty awesome. Will save you guys a ton of time. So while I mentioned earlier, don't write content outright on ChatGPT, which will most likely be maybe not great, copied around, or you have some things that you don't really want people to read. But for more machine readable stuff, it's pretty awesome and it will save you a ton of time. So the optimization of the schema stuff is also hugely important, especially if you have FAQs, for example, or other type of content. And again, it will leverage you in both areas. But what Erfan just said on the relevance authority, relevance from the keyword stuff, that's as well something it was there, but I think now is more prominent. And again, what I mentioned earlier on re-optimizing your content strategy is also important, because you should ask yourself, hey, do we have 200 pages ranking on small keywords and don't make sense to be there? Essentially, do we need to consolidate stuff? I know maybe generic advice here, but I think more so than before, this is important, and it will also help then to trim down all the gazillion of pages we have online. And lastly, we also know that Google has not been indexing, now 1 second on Google, has not been indexing everything as it used to be, right? I remember the day where you could publish stuff on any type of client and then it will be indexed immediately and being available there. But right now, we've seen this when I used to work with real estate, no, real estate is more of a prop tech company, sorry, I will not make names, but you can see from my LinkedIn. And we used to have very strong domain authority, the domain was very good, but at times when we would write guides for, this was expats moving around, we would not rank. And by analyzing, we find out that, hey, the pages were good, informative and everything. So the director of marketing came to me and was asking, Gabrio, why are not we ranking with this? What's wrong? We're writing wrong. And I came to the conclusion that we were not writing wrong. It was simply fact that Google decided that for that particular query, there were already enough pages, good enough, that were answering the user intent. And in the way we wrote it, we were not adding anything new to the table. Because let's say a new guide to relocate to Barcelona, let's say, and it was maybe didn't have new information or useful information. So in other words, the information retrieval will not go to the next stage, just indexed and not serve, essentially. I always confuse index, not crawled, crawled, not index, right? So I think it's the second stage. So the first stage will go through, the second stage will not go through, and then they don't go live. And then we will go, hey, we need to rethink the content, what we're doing instead. We don't have to cover those topics anymore. So once again, trimming down your content, being more relevant is super relevant once again, especially in 2025, where there's already so much information out there. So this is one important thing, plus the experience stuff. I think there's, again, so much work to be done there, so don't be too afraid of losing your jobs, guys, out there. So for you in content marketing, I think it's still very exciting times.
Leverage AI, but don't panic.
Yeah.
That's the final answer, essentially. Leverage it, make it useful at the end of the day, but someone who's like as a concern, act on it, but don't be stressed out.
Yeah, that's a good advice.
Yeah, but panicking about it, which folks in the SEO industry, they love drama. But my opinion is we should calm down. We should observe what's happening in the environment and make the rational decisions. And whenever we are emotional, we cannot make rational decisions. And you actually made some very, very interesting points, not related to ChatGPT versus Google. We all know search is here to stay for many, many, many more years. But the application of ChatGPT, not just related to content creation, but it's as a essentially VA to help you to provide feedback, to analyze data at larger scale. So I happen to be the case that I work with many, many, many different programmers globally. Majority of them, they used to, whenever they wanted a code sample, they essentially spent hours on GitHub or on some forums or Reddit, and the codes were buggy. All of these are like issues. And now with the programmers, I see they could type a particular function they would like to see, immediately written down, code simplified, and someone who knows how to write code with ChatGPT that also has, of course, some programming experience, can feed it with more data sources. Unbelievable stuff can happen. In fact, I believe the number may not be precise, but I've heard 30% of the codes being written at Google are now written by AI is essentially is responsible for writing them.
Yep,
So
definitely it's a great use case.
for applications for AI is super clear. It has been extremely useful, but for organic search, still unclear, still no evidence. The evidence is as much as there is, for example, maybe like drinking, I don't know, smoking cigarettes. If you said smoking cigarettes in 70s or 60s, like doctors used to advocate for smoking cigarettes. Now, like there is research that smoking cigarettes can potentially cause cancer, depending also on the environment. Yes, I do smoke cigarettes.
But actually,
Yeah,
nicotine is good for you. I'm not
absolutely.
advocating
Look at what I have here.
smoking cigarette. I don't smoke, and I personally don't like the smell. But I've just recently heard that, I mean, some research that the nicotine can have some positive effects for the body. The problem is when it's mixed with the cigarette, the tar, the chemical compounds. So if one has a way to only use nicotine, that's apparently good for you.
Guys, if you are not a nicotine user, don't do it because it's a very addictive substance. But I personally use this. The only time that I smoke, I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes, by the way, like
Oh,
months
quite
ago.
a bit, yeah.
A lot, a lot. And then I've discovered these things. And usually at morning, I will have 1 cigarette before breakfast, just right after I wake up. Then the rest of the day actually goes by nicotine patches, which are extremely useful, healthy at the same time. Nicotine is neurological. It actually does have some benefits to it, but although like smoking cigarettes is not healthy. It's like it was unclear so many years ago. It's exactly like AI. Exactly like AI. So we need to see how more research, more data into it. But so far, I'm personally not convinced. But
Fair enough.
everything is possible in this life. Everything is possible.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I guess
Perfect.
that on that note, we can close this nice chat. So it was great being here. Thank you so much, Erfan. And
It was an honor.
we'll speak again soon on one of the channels and see you guys soon. Bye.
See you guys. Take care, guys.